Genetically modified organisms, to be or not to be? This is the question before the federal government as debates whether genetically modified crops should be allowed in Nigeria. The Nigerian government in April affirmed the safety of genetically modified organisms, GMOs, including the recently endorsed Stella corn for both planting and consumption, emphasizing the thoroughness of measures taken to safeguard human health against potential risks associated with GMOs. The government says it is committed to regulating modern biotechnology. It aims to adhere to global standard practices that support agricultural modernization while prioritizing the health and well-being of citizens.
In reference to happenings around the globe about GMOs, there have been several rejections of the health-impairing crop varieties and food commodities that some landmark judgments in favor of concerned citizens of most nations were the sides raised. A very recent example was the judgment by the South African Supreme Court proclaiming a cancellation of earlier subsisting approval for GMO crops and food commodities in the country.
As good as this may sound, at least 92 African civil society organizations are asking Nigerian parliament to prohibit the use and consumption of genetically modified organisms in the country to protect the environment and health of citizens. At this public hearing on GMOs organized by the House Joint Committees on Agriculture Production and Services, Privatization, Commercialization, Public Assets, Science, Engineering and Special Duties, the debate is on again. The CSOs allege that the rising cases of cancer and other related diseases are traceable to the use and consumption of GMOs.
This is a battle that must be fought and won because the overall long-term effects of consumption of GMO foods and the pattern of consumption. But what I want you to know is that GMOs are time bombs.
The CSOs say 19 European Union countries, 4 Asian countries, 2 African countries, and 5 countries in the Americas have banned GMOs.
Basically acting as the public relations experts of foreign interests that are trying to plant or pursue this GMO in our country. That all of us witness regulators acting as business consultants, right? Being more carried away by their decision to approve GMOs in our country than to prevent the impact of GMOs on Nigerians.
External interests that are interested in marketing dumping GMOs, which are agents of mass destruction. These are biological weapons. I'm a professor of bioinorganic chemistry. They are pushing insecurity on our nation.
Chairman of the committee, Bello Kauje, urged the stakeholders to be objective and be patriotic in their submissions.
Conduct a comprehensive investigation into the introduction of the genetically modified crop, GMC, into the Nigeria by the National Biosafety Management Agency to assess the potential health and environmental risks associated with it. Honorable colleagues, the significance of these 2 investigations cannot be overemphasized as they play a crucial role in the national food security.
With all the parties involved advancing their position to win the debate on genetically modified crops, the health of the nation hangs on the balance, and all eyes are on the federal government to take decision in the interest of citizens. Tunji Olanipeku, Arise News.
And now, Dr. Segun Adebayo is the Deputy Director, Center for Food Safety and Agriculture Research. He joins us from our Lagos studios to discuss this. Thank you so much, Dr. Segun, for your time. The call to ban GMOs in Nigeria is gaining momentum. Why do you think there's such a strong opposition from experts and civil society organizations?
Thank you very much for having me tonight. The opposition is not new. This is not the first place in the world where GMOs are going to face such strong opposition. And just like the Minister of Agri rightly pointed out, that even in South Africa, after a 9-year battle, GMOs, exactly the exact GMO, MON 87460, which is the exact event of telomerase, which was approved in Nigeria, the approval was reversed in South Africa after a 9-year battle. And also we see in Mexico, the past president of Mexico banned GMOs, and not only GMOs, banned a very toxic agrochemical called Roundup, which the active ingredient is glyphosate, was also banned because of its implication on the health and also the implication in degrading the environment. They were banned in Mexico. And when the new president of Mexico assumed office, and her speech on the 1st of October this year, 2024, she reiterated the ban and strengthened it because the reasons she gave was for the safety, the health, the safety of her people, and also the protection of the environment. So when we call on the Nigerian government to ban GMOs in Nigeria and also to ban glyphosate, it's because there are many countries around the world that are also banning it. In the European Union, GMOs are banned. They are not cultivated in the European Union. In India, the only GM crop that is approved in India is BT cotton, and which they are reversing it because of the dangerous impact it has had on their farmers and their farming systems. Even our nearby neighbors right here, Burkina Faso, they are abandoning the BT cotton program that is started due to poor yield, and all the promises that were given for GMOs have not come to pass. So, I mean, if we call on the government here in Nigeria, it's because we are not the countries that have better scientific programs than us, better scientific structures than us, are banning it. So I don't see why what we're doing is any different. And we call on the government again to take actions. Look at what's happening all around the world. Even in Tanzania, Tanzania has achieved 128% food sufficiency, but they have a ban on GMOs in effect. So when we call on the government, we are not doing something out of this world. We're calling on the government to look at what is happening in other nations and follow cue and do the same thing.
Well, one of the main arguments for the ban, we understand, is the potential risk to human health. But the question is, how credible are these concerns, and what evidence do we have to support or refute them?
Right, so there is currently no long-term health risk assessment conducted in Nigeria. And then when we don't have the Nigerian risk assessment, now even the short-term ones and even any risk assessment, we have asked the NBMA and they have not provided to us. We have asked them, it's on record. We've asked them several times and they haven't provided it to us. So with the lack of local risk assessment data, we now have to look at the international community. Let's take US for instance. Over 125,000 people have received compensation from Monsanto for contracting cancer by using their product, which is it's a mandatory add-on with GMOs. That's number one. And Monsanto has paid over $10.9 billion to these people. The records are out there. You can look it up on the internet. Number two, there is sufficient research which we have made available to the House Committee. We've made available to the National Assembly. There is sufficient research that proves that GMOs cause cancer. GMOs, there's sufficient research for that. There's sufficient research to prove that GMOs lead to antibiotic resistance. There's sufficient research to prove that GMOs lead to reduced fertility. Sufficient research for that. There's sufficient research also that GMOs cause endocrine, they disrupt the endocrine system in the human bodies. So these are researches that are on the internet. They're available by reputable organizations all around the world. And you see, these are researches that they're available. We've made them available to the House Committee. We are willing to share it with the Minister of Agriculture and the other agencies responsible, and of which we know that they are aware of these researches, because even one of them said at the public hearing that she said that pesticides cause cancer. And so if you know that pesticide cause cancer, and by prolonged use of GMO farming systems, which increases the use of pesticides, according to research in Canada, which shows that after a 16-year research, pesticide use increased by over 244%. So with that data available, it shows that we are only playing with fire if we keep these pesticides, these dangerous pesticides, which are mandatory add-ons with GMOs.
Yes,
if we keep
Dr.
them
Shegu,
in our
if
farming
I'm
systems,
here.
and if we keep farming, yes.
Can you hear
thank
me?
you.
Yeah, the National Biosafety Management Agency
I can hear you.
seeks that the GMOs, undergoes strict scientific scrutiny before approval. I mean, do you think this regulatory process is robust enough to counter the concerns raised by some of the concerns, or will I say critics?
All right, I was at the same organization, the National Biosafety Management Agencies. I was at their 7th annual conference, which held, I think, about 2 or 3 weeks ago in the city of Abuja. And in that conference, they said that their laboratories are going to be ISO certified. So if their laboratories are going to be ISO certified, that means they are not currently ISO certified. So that means, are the laboratories credible enough to carry out the assessments they talked about? Secondly, from information that we have gotten from the same organization, they use the European Food Safety Authority, the EFSA risk assessment for their risk assessment. And Austria banned GMOs because they said that the EFSA protocol, the EFSA risk assessment protocol, is not sufficient enough to guarantee the safety, the health safety of their people. The records are out there. So if that is the risk assessment process or procedure that our local agency used, we say here today that it is not sufficient, and we still insist that whatever they have done is not sufficient to prove that GMOs are healthy for us here in Nigeria.
Just before I let you go, I understand countries around the world have taken varying stances on GMOs, and you said some have banned it and some embracing it, others also imposing strict bans, just like Nigeria is doing now. Where should Nigeria position itself in this global debate? Should we take a more cautious or progressive approach to this? What's the way forward as a wrap-up?
Thank you. The way forward for Nigeria is to focus on safe agroecological practices, that is regenerative agriculture. I mean, if you want to be food secure, GMOs are not going to solve the problem of post-harvest losses. GMOs are not going to build the necessary roads into our farms to ensure that our food produces can be transported to the market. These are problems that have contributed to over 40% of food post-harvest losses. We lose them. They don't get into the society. There is no time you go to the market that you're not going to see food. So our problem is actually a food distribution problem. And so if Nigeria is going to start looking at becoming food sufficient, we can look at the Tanzania model. We can follow suit. We can focus on regenerative agriculture, because GMOs are, number one, you look at also who owns the patent of the seeds, because those seeds are patented and those seeds are owned by companies outside Nigeria. And many of those seeds are sterile. You cannot replant them. When you plant them, this planting season, by the time you're done with them, by the time you make your harvest, you have to go back to the seed merchants to buy the seeds again, and that is not sustainable. Even in Nigeria, the National Cotton Farmers Association, they came out with a press release on the newspaper, and they said that all the promises of GMOs have not yielded. Their lands are barren. Their lands can no longer sustain organic agriculture because of the heavy use of pesticide. So, I mean, that's a live example right here in Nigeria. They used to buy their seeds for 15,000 per kg, and you need 4 kgs per hectare. Now the seeds are going as high as 55,000 naira per kg, and they need 4 kgs per hectare. How many smallholders farmers can afford 220,000 naira per kg? That's for the seeds alone, and you have to buy it every planting season. What if they come and say there are no seeds? It has created a scarcity already. And these are the challenges with patented seeds. And you see, we also have an act, the Plant Variety Act of 2021, which we call on the lawmakers to look at, because that law protects the seed merchants against the smallholder farmers. And, you know, with these laws in place, I mean, we need to call on our National Assembly to look critically into our framework for agriculture, our policies, and be sure that our smallholder farmers, which are actually the ones that provide the bulk of the food to the society, are protected and have regenerative seeds, that they are not, so that we don't become enslaved to the seed merchants. And these are part of the concerns. And we want the government to look into this to create more flexible agricultural policies that enhance local food productions by our rural farmers, our smallholder farmers.
Dr. Segun Adebayo, Deputy Director, Center for Food Safety and Agricultural Research. Thank you for coming on the Newsnight.